So, a very warm welcome to all of you in our Glimpsing Guruvar series. Today, we are going to talk about the concept of containerization, and we would be looking at a glimpse of Docker. This is brought to you by 5 Elements Learning, and my name is Pallavi. So, we are going to proceed with this concept. We'll be talking a bit of theory and then we will be moving on to doing some hands-on in here. I sent you all a mail where I asked you to download and install Docker with respect to the operating system you all have. Since we just have 1 hour with us, I'll be moving on at a pace and this video will be shared with you guys so you can have a look at it and try it at your end. Although I would wait for you to also proceed with me, but in case you fall back, I'll be moving on so that everybody is at the same page and we respect the time we have available. So, with the current pandemic going around us, I hope we have all heard this word of trying to contain the pandemic and trying to contain the person infected. So, we all have started to understand the importance of the word containing in another respect. Do you all agree? And why is that important? Anybody? So before this pandemic came into picture, we have not heard this word associated with any other disease where we would like to contain the person who has been infected by it, right? Does anybody has an answer to it? You can say no if you are not able to relate it to the current topic at hand, and that's okay. So that I will not wait for your answers and it will save time. Okay. So, Arun has said that to keep characteristics of one different from another. That's a valid point. Another point is to ensure that one is not infecting or impacting the environment. Okay. So, if there is an error with one, it does not spread across another. So, we would like to contain. That's also true that we would like to ensure that the characteristics or the symptoms which is associated with the person one is uh, is just specific to person one and it is not it is kept different from person two because of a lot of demographic associated with that particular person, and then they are trying to go back to the history of how that person has got that infection because it is spreading through a specific mode, which is that it has to somehow get in contact with that spreader, and that spreader has to be available at a certain position from where the infection started. So, to map that path of travel history, it is extremely important that we contain every individual. So you will hear a lot of this word, and if you try to associate this concept with the current ongoing, you will start seeing a lot of similarities. Now, coming back to the world of computers, we all have come across this. It works on my machine, and then the tester says that there is a bug and it's coming on my machine, and the developer says that, well, it is not coming on my machine, or the software is working on my machine but it is not working on the tester machines. So, well, maybe the management will come and say, then we have to ship your machine. And maybe that's how the Docker was born. So, this was one meme I found out when I was trying to figure out Docker in a light source, or why if there was a need for something like Docker or containerization to even come up. Okay. So, going back to the dark ages, when there was the application which was monolithic in nature, as in the application, the operating system, the user, everything was bound, the physical server, everything was tightly bound. Okay. And what was that application type called? Anyone knows? Monolithic, that's the right answer. So that application type was known as the monolithic type of an application when everything was extremely tightly coupled. And then came microservices. Is that right? That after monolithic came microservices. Is there anything which came in between monolithic and microservices? Monolith and microservices? We all heard of service oriented architecture, SOA. So, have you heard about service oriented architecture, SOA applications, SOAP protocols, web services? We have heard about them, right? So, that came in between. So, there is a comparison between monolithic application and microservices, and let's see what is that difference and what is that benefit and need which led to the rise of microservices kind of application design. So, from a strategy perspective, a microservice architecture basically follows a Unix philosophy: do one thing and do it well. Okay. And as per Martin Fowler, he is describing microservice based architecture having two important properties. If you are changing a small part of the application, it should not require rebuilding and redeploying the entire application. Okay? Only that particular change should be rebuilt and redeployed. And it should adhere to the principles of fine grained interfaces, which means that the services are independently deployable services, and it should be business driven, which basically means if something can be done better using a programming language, using particular protocol, then it should be done using that. And then you should build interfaces and communication between these services. Do you see a similarity between a microservice type of an application and a web UI pattern, which we all became very familiar to some time back? It has to do with refreshing of a web page. Testers will know. Who used to deal with the web UI testing, they would know. Can you relate it? Okay. React components, Arun again says. Anybody else? Anuvrat Singh, can you tell me the exact word? I'm looking at one exact word. So you remember web applications used to refresh entirely in some time back, and then the page load event was detected when the application was completely loaded, and then what came into picture? Ajax, right, Anand? So Ajax came into picture, and Ajax did the same thing, right? That part of the application, UI part, which has to be updated because something has modified. Only that part should get updated. The rest of the part associated with that web UI displayed should not get changed, right? So, if you can relate this concept of microservices to a complete application architecture design, that instead of now building the complete application using one language, one database, one server, and everything using the same programming language, which is all tightly coupled, we now don't do that. We do one thing and do it well, and we are now building all in terms of services where everything is independent to every other thing. Within that application architecture, there are small components known as microservices which can talk to each other. So there is a certain sect of people who disagree with microservices as an excellent architecture design because there could be communication issues, interface design issues, etc. But nevertheless, it has gained significant popularity, and you can find out more information on this link. The another thing is the application lifecycle model, which has changed. We are familiar with, we have moved from waterfall to agile to DevOps, right? So, waterfall, we used to first gather the requirements, then design, then develop, then test at the last. In agile, what we used to do, so what we used to do in agile, iterative model of building. So we used to have scrums, right? And sprint, we sorry, not scrum, we used to have sprints, and inside each sprint, which is either 2 week or 4 week, we are performing development test and shipping, development test and shipping, development test and shipping, right? But then came into picture the DevOps, where we are continuously developing and continuously deploying, continuously releasing, and there is an infinite loop which comes into picture. You code, you test, you deploy, you release, and this goes on, right? So, in a CI CD pipeline, you have a developer who is obviously using a version control software. You have a tester who is also picking up the code from the same version control software, testing information, and then there is a operations involved in here who is supposed to deploy and send the release out for usage. So there is a continuous integration and continuous delivery happening, and not many organizations have been able to automate this entire process. Some may have been able to automate continuous integration, partial continuous delivery, but the objective is that now most of the organization has moved on to the DevOps model of application life cycle way of creation. Is that clear to all of you? Now, what does this cause? This causes us a wall of confusion. So, there is a wall of confusion which exists between the devs, which are testers and developers and ops. They want to deliver, but they are supposed to deliver new functionalities, which mean they are going to change the code, which mean they are going to fix the bugs. At the same time, the operations want stability. They want something which is going to execute. They are wanting to archive the builds. They are looking for the support where they are finding issues with the current existing product out there, and they want that to be fixed first. So there exists a tussle between the devs and the operation, which exists between the CI CD pipeline. So, how does containerization helps us overcome these challenges, and why do we need it, and how does Docker helps us in here? So people started using long back something known as virtual machines, which we are all familiar with. Now I believe who all have joined in here understand the difference between virtual machines and containers. Is there anyone in here who does not understand the difference between virtual machine and containers? So let's say I have a Windows operating system, and on the same system I want to also use a Linux machine. So most of the time what we used to do, we used to have a Linux virtual machine on our Windows operating system. Have you guys done that ever? Use that ever? Yeah? Can you have more than one virtual machine on the same operating system? So you have a Linux machine and you have another Windows machine, a VM available. And we all know that if we keep on increasing the number of virtual machines on our system, it is going to slow down our system, right? Because A, it takes a lot of space, right? It is going to take a lot of space. It is using our operating system. And when a virtual machine is getting installed, it is getting installed with everything, its own operating system, the complete set of application it has, which obviously needs a lot of space. So, for example, I have a Linux machine installed on my Windows operating system because maybe something on which I'm working requires some Linux set of commands. And let's say I have another Windows machine installed because I want to test something on a different Windows environment, and my organization was a startup and it could not afford different, original machines. So on the same machine, we used to have different window versions and, you know, different Linux versions as well. So those were the days. But then came into picture containers. So what is a container? It's a lightweight, virtualized again, portable, software defined environment in which the software is running in isolation from another software on the same physical host machine. In here, the host operating system is common between every application. So the Docker engine layer, which is available in here, or inside instead of Docker, if I use the word, the container engine layer, which is available in here, is using the host operating system and the other hardware infrastructure to allow these different containers to run on the same machine, which causes very less utilization of space, other resources, and they are up very quickly. They take less space. They can be shared easily. They are fast paced. So developers love container because they can get enabled, and they can, they're able to contain their work, control their environment, and experiment as much as possible without impacting the actual build which is going to be used by the customers. The operations are happy with containers because they can focus on the current runtime. That means the current customer enabled tasks such as logging, monitoring, utilization, dependency management, etc. We should also know that Docker is not the only type of container available. Did you know that? Did you know that Docker is not the only type of containerization mechanism available? So there are other ways. There are Java containers, there are containers like LXT, OpenVZ, unikernels. Docker became popular because from the growing needs of web scale companies like Google, and simple tooling made popular because of it being the open source in nature. Okay. This is a small diagram which explains the architectural difference between VM and containers. Okay. Now, as stated in your email, so before I proceed further, and now we are going to do some hands-on, understand some of the concepts of Dockers. Do you guys have any queries which I should answer? You can say no if you do not have a question, so that again I will not wait. Okay. So installation part of Docker I have sent you guys on mail. So if you have Windows 10, 64-bit Pro, Enterprise, etc. education build available, then the direct Docker window installer can work for you. Otherwise, we need to have and install the Docker toolbox. Okay. So I have available with me a Docker toolbox using which I have installed Docker on my system. Now, there is a difference between a Docker image and a Docker container. A Docker image is a unchangeable file that contains the source code, libraries and dependencies, tools, etc. other files which is required for an application to run. And a Docker container is a virtualized runtime environment where user can isolate applications from the underlying system. Image can exist without containers, whereas container cannot exist without image. They need an image to run. So, between Docker image and a Docker container, if I have to, from the concept of oops, if I have to create a relation, what is that relation between image and a container? from the concept of object oriented programming, if I would try to create a relation between Docker image and container, what could be that? Anyone? Inheritance. Okay. Has a. Okay. Mm-hmm. How about class and object? Will you agree or no? Inheritance, I do not agree because container is not inheriting from an image. Okay? Container is not inheriting from an image. Also, you cannot create an container. Maybe you can create a container from a container. I have not delved further into it, but from an image and a container, they are two separate, what should I say? They are two separate states. Okay, they are two separate states. So they both are not at the same level. Okay, so there is an image which is a static entity and the runtime instance of an image. So if you have to work with that image, you have to first convert it into a container and then only you can do something with it. So I want you all to understand this. Okay, is everybody who has joined the session is from testing background? No, don't go there. Is Docker image similar to Maven dependency? So Ramit asked, no, don't go there. Docker image has got nothing to do with Maven dependency. So what Docker image? I can see where why you have raised this question. So maybe you have seen Docker Hub, which has got a set of repositories of all Docker images, and then you have seen Maven, which has got a Maven repositories of all the possible dependencies which Maven could have. Right, Ramit? Is that's why you are? Is because of that you asked me this question? Okay. So, like I said, don't go there right now. I understand your reason is valid, but for the time being, understand this that Docker image is something. I will remind me this question again, Ramit, and I will answer you. Okay. I'll tell you why these two should not be compared and how they are different. Okay. So let's set up and run some few commands about Docker. Okay. So if you have Docker available, then you can do this. If not, it's okay. You can try this later. So double clicking on this Docker quick start icon, it will show you that you are getting, Docker is getting started. I'm just going to change my, let me just increase my font. Okay, I have modified the font. Can increase it more. This should be good. And Okay, doesn't like it, no problem. So here, okay. So if I run the command docker dash dash version, it is going to print docker version which is currently available. Okay, you all can see this, right? If I say docker version, it is printing the current docker version which is available. Okay, simple command to show where and what version is available. Then the next command I would like to run is Docker run hello world. So hello world is basically a image available with the Docker set of pre-built images. Okay, and if I do not have this image beforehand, so let's say if you have just installed the toolbox or the Docker window installer, then you will not have this hello world image by default. So when you say docker run hello world, it will first fetch the image and then it would execute it for you. So let's say I run docker run hello world. What it would do is, it says, as you can see, image hello world latest local. You first fetch this hello world image and then only it would be executing the hello world image. Okay, is this clear? These two simple commands which I am trying to execute. So when I say Docker run hello world, it says hello from Docker. This message shows that installation appears to be working correctly and etc etc etc. So what we have done, we have tested the version of our Docker. So Docker dash dash version, and the second command I tried was Docker run hello world. So hello world is generally the first program anybody writes who is trying to learn a programming language. That's why this. So if you have, how many of you have already Docker toolbox available on your system, so that I know that you are trying and you are going to try with me? Let me know that you have a the toolbox available and you're going to try with me. How many of you are going to do that? I want to know the head count, please. Okay, Dev, you are trying. Good. Venkatesh, okay. So two people. Anand, okay. Fine. Okay. That's okay. So I'm going to keep your three progress. I'm going to track your three progress. So let me know when you three are done. Others, what you guys can do is I want you to open docker.com. Okay. And in here, in the get started. So here is a good example or a guide of a list of Docker commands which are generally made available, okay, and how and where this helps, okay. So you can read this meanwhile the others are trying. And then there is this Docker engine command line interface. So whatever command we are trying in here. In case you are not able to, go through it or read through it, sorry, use them, you can basically search them here in the command line reference, and uh, at least do a reading of it so that you understand what we have done. So let me know if parallelly for you three, Dev, Venkatesh, and Anand, these two commands work. So we have just tested that our Docker installation works by saying version and the um, hello world. Worked great. Okay, Dev. Okay, Venkatesh looks happy. Great. Okay, cool. Now there is next thing which we need to see. So Ramit, because he related it to Maven, so there is something called as Docker Hub available. So let's go to Docker Hub, okay, here, and let's have a look at it. So you can quickly sign in and create your account at Docker Hub. So what is available at Docker Hub? What is available at Docker Hub is a complete list of repositories, complete list of images or repositories, uh, which people, organizations, publishers have built and made available for general public use. So I have signed in as a community edition. Okay, so you can have a paid account, or if you are a uh, uh, I don't want to use the word poor. I will just try to rephrase it. If you are, if you believe in community service like me, and then you go ahead and create a community account. Okay, so create a community account and explore Docker. So I just clicked on explore. Okay, so I'll give you 5 minutes, create your account and click on community. So you will see all these Docker images available. So in here, you have all these pre-created images with Oracle, with the MySQL, with the Postgres, with the Ubuntu, with Selenium, with Mongo, with Node, and even Docker. And you name it, I believe they're going to have it. So let's say I want something to do with, Tomcat. So let's search if it has something with Tomcat. Oh, yes, it has. Okay. So it has with Tomcat. Let's say, does it have anything to do with Excel? Not sure. Oh, it has. Okay. Okay, that's nice. And let's say I want to use Python. So does it has anything to do with Python? Oh, it has. That's great. Okay. So there are a lot of these pre-built images available with the Docker, and they're hosted at the Docker Hub. So go ahead, create your account and look at it. And now, Ramit, coming to your question, I understood why you compared them. See, in the Docker, it's like you see that you try to understand that in Maven, what we had was, so Maven repository, I'll open that link for you, okay, so that I don't give you wrong information. Although I will try to, uh, you know, try to answer your question, but I could be wrong. So here is Maven of Selenium, and let's search Selenium image here in Docker. Okay. So here is Selenium in Docker. So you have lots of Selenium in Docker. Let's look at Selenium Hub. Now, if you look at this Selenium stuff here in Maven, let's click on 3.141.59. This Maven is actually working at the development level, okay, at the product development level, or even if you say test development level, it's still a product which we are developing or the code which we are writing. And the purpose of this Maven is to ensure that the dependencies which you require for your project are managed at runtime. Okay. So what happens is that so basically it is controlling the version management of your dependencies at runtime. Version management of your dependencies of your project at runtime. Do you understand that, Ramit? What Maven is doing? It is trying to manage the project dependencies of your product at runtime. Okay? It has got nothing to do with containing or controlling the environment. It's only saying that at the time of execution, when you are going to build the product, okay, or when you are going to compile the product, at that time, what version you have mentioned in your project object model, I am going to fetch that version for you at that time of execution from the Maven repository and execute it for you. Okay. Whereas when we talk about Docker, first of all, these two are two different things. One is managing the project dependencies. One is a project management control software. The another is environment management control software. Okay. And in here, it is segregating the environment. Maven is not segregating the environment. In a Maven POM, I can have Selenium, JUnit, TestNG, MySQL, etc., all clubbed in one. Whereas in a Docker environment, I can have a Selenium container, a MySQL container separate, and do you get a gist? They all could all be separate containers where in each container I am managing my environment for Selenium separately, my SQL separately, my Java container is separate, and there I'm all managing them beautifully. They all are, happy in their own spaces, no worries, no problems, and I'm also happy and I'm working in a safe environment. Okay, so first of all, don't compare them, two different entities altogether, and I hope you have understood the difference. So I'll be moving on. We can talk about it later, and it could be possible that I may not have been able to entirely clear your doubt, but for the sake of time and everybody else, I would like to complete some what I have created for you all. Okay. So you all have created an account, and have you all explored that? Let's say I have searched for MySQL. So what I want to, not here, where were we? Here. Yeah, MySQL. So what I want to do right now is I want to showcase you how we would be fetching or pulling. The word used is pulling the MySQL image. Then we would be getting into that MySQL shell, create a Very quickly, we would be creating a MySQL database, a table, and get some data into it. Okay, so we will do that. So all of you should be able to see this page. Okay, who all have created, uh, you know, a MySQL thing. We would be taking that up. Okay, so here I would be clicking on this, and it says Docker pull MySQL. I would copy it, go back to my Docker terminal and type it. Docker pull MySQL. It uses default tag latest. So this is going to fetch the image Docker MySQL latest to my current system. So if I run Docker images on my system in my current terminal, I have Docker Hello Globe, MySQL, standalone Chrome debug, standalone Chrome Selenium Hub, Docker Alpine, Docker file, Hello World. For you, it could be that you have MySQL and Hello World in your Docker images, because that's the only two things which we have done so far. Okay, so Docker images will show you that you have downloaded MySQL and Hello World. Do you see this? Anand, Venkatesh, and Dev. Do you all see this? So the command we typed was docker pull MySQL, and then I said Docker images. Okay? Okay, fine. So, and then I said Docker images. So when done, let me know that you are done. I'll be moving ahead. For those again who are unable to do it along with us, you can look at the command what Docker pull is doing and what Docker images does. So it showcases you the repository, the available tag, the image ID which is given by Docker, when it is created, what is the size of the image, and you can see that the sizes are just in MBs. So imagine how less space it is taking versus the sizes in gigabytes which your virtual machines used to take. Okay, so Dev is done. Okay, Anand, great. Mm-hmm. Cool. So once we have that available, our next is I will show you this command so that you understand it, what is written in here, and then we run it. The command is we say docker run. The purpose of docker run is now to create a container. Okay. The purpose of docker run is now to create a container. We have the image. We now have to create a container. So we say we want to create a container with the name. So I have given a name, let's say Pallavi dash MySQL. Okay. And let's say I want to give it a different name, let's say Docker dash MySQL. and then I set my environment. So there is this MySQL root password, which is an environment variable associated with MySQL, and I set the password to unicorn, and I say that publish this container at this port. So here let's say I change the port to 666604. By default, you all people who use MySQL, they should know that by default MySQL uses the port 3306. But right now here, understand that there is my system, then there is Docker, and then there is this container. So the MySQL is going to run in the container. At the container level, the port is 3306, which is to be mapped with the Docker port 6604. And I want to create a container of this image MySQL latest with the name Docker MySQL. I want to set the password to unicorn and I want to execute it. So this is my command. You can change your port ID, not 3306. You can change your password and the name which you would like to give to your container. Okay. So here, if I run this particular command and I say docker ps-a, it would give me the list of the different processes or the containers which are currently executing. Now, for the sake of uh, change, I would just try to showcase you, or let me just remove some of the containers. Okay, just 1 second so that you do not see the other things. Meanwhile, people who are trying, you can run this command. So Docker rm with the name of the container. So if you are trying to create a container of an image and you do not give any name to it, Docker itself gives name to it. Don't ask me why these strange names are given. Somebody in Docker has a very creative mind. So now if I say Docker PSA, only my Docker is available, which is Docker MySQL. Okay, you all can see this. Docker MySQL is available. Got it? Created, right? What about Dev and Venkatesh? So I am moving ahead now. Okay. The next part we are going to do is I am going to say execute So the name of my container, Docker execute in the interactive mode, the bash shell. Okay. So the image I have created, I want to execute the bash command or the bash shell of that image, which I am going to do. And in here, I am going to type my command, which is mysql-u root-p unicorn. Using this command, I hope you all are able to see mysql-u root-p unicorn. I'm able to connect to the mysql database. Now I'm going to create database school, and I'm going to say use school, and I'm going to create table student. You can create any other database or table which you think you would like. Name. So name is a varchar, and let's say 30, and then I say marks int. It looks like I'm going to exceed by another 15 to 20 minutes. Is it okay with you guys? Insert into table values. So insert into student values. Okay, Dev. So if you cannot continue, you can leave. I'm sorry that I have exceeding. Yes, it's going to get recorded. So those who can stay back, because I would be needing to exceed it by another 15-20 minutes to finish what I have created for you all. So it would be great if some of you can stay back so that I'm not talking to an empty room. So I'm adding some data into it. And here some more data, and let's say okay. Now if I say select star from student, I would be able to fetch this answer, right? Fetch this particular table. This is clear to you guys? What has happened in here? So for people who are not extremely familiar with MySQL, what we have done is root, and here you give your password which you have generated. Okay, thanks Dave. And then the rest is I will simply copy all the commands which I have generated so that you get an idea. Okay, have you all received this? Okay, so now let's look at the diagrammatic level what is that I have tried to create. At the diagrammatic level, what is that we have tried to create? This is our Docker environment which has a container of MySQL which is exposed to the Docker through the port 3306. Now, to expose this MySQL from this Docker to the host, which is hosting this Docker, I have created another port ID which is 6604. Do you all understand this? So, my machine has an IP, then the Docker terminal which we have opened has an IP, and this container which contains the MySQL has an IP. There are three IPs now, okay? There are three IPs. Localhost, the Docker terminal has an IP, and the MySQL container has an IP. Is this clear? Okay. So we are exposed using the command which I have created. By default, MySQL exposes itself through the port 3306. So the 3306 port was exposed to the container which was running the MySQL. And then I have used that to be ported to the 6604 of the Docker terminal inside which this container is running, so that I can talk from an outside environment to this MySQL database. So the next I want to do is I want to talk from outside environment to the MySQL container or the MySQL DB hosted in the Docker container. Is my user scenario clear to you? What I am going to do? I want to talk from the outside environment to the MySQL database hosted in the Docker container. Okay? How would I do that? For that, let me open command prompt. Now in my system, MySQL is already installed. Okay. I'm a user of MySQL database. I already have MySQL community version server already installed in my system. For that, I would have to basically go to the place in the backend where my files are. So here MySQL server bin is where my MySQL server is. Okay. So I say cd this. Now, if I say mysql -u root -p password, to which MySQL this particular this has connected localhost. Very good, Anand. So if I have used that command without giving any IP address and I said show databases, it has connected to the local host. If I say show databases here, the databases here and here are different. You see this? This is my local host, this is my container. Okay. Now I want to talk to the database of this container. For that, the command which I would be using is so for the people using this command, you can find the machine IP available and container ID available. We don't need container ID, we just need machine IP. So let's understand the command I'm going to use. MySQL u root, password unicorn, host is, this is the Docker machine IP. Okay. If I say Docker machine IP, this is the IP address I get. Okay. Now this is what I'm going to use in my command. Docker machine IP port 6604. So I have to connect to this. Do I see now the same databases as available here in my container? And if I say select, if I say use school and select star from student, got it? So now my database is very much contained and happily set up in a Docker container. Okay, and if I want, I can try to connect to it from outside as well. I have to understand there are three IPs associated. Do you all get this? Is this clear? So the idea behind it was to make you understand that you can run things inside your Docker terminal. So when you run an image, you create containers and then you can access those containers from your outside environment. You may have come across a lot of Selenium plus Docker tutorials, right? Where they set up Selenium grid and then they set up the Selenium hub and the nodes, and then through Docker they try to execute the Selenium the grid environment. You must have come across a lot of tutorials like that. And maybe from this basic concept, which I have tried to explain you through MySQL, you will now understand those tutorials better in case you have not understood it by default then. Because what happens is we are not able to see when Selenium is executing those tests if you are not using them in the debug mode. Should we be able to connect one Docker container with another container in the same host? Yes, we can do that. But again, it depends on what type of, what type of contents are running inside those containers. Have they exposed their ports or some means through which they allow communication and all sort of stuff. Now, having said that, I want to showcase you how you can create your own Docker image through a Docker file. Okay. Uh, I'm going to use a very simple example. The idea is to tell you that this is a way somebody is creating these images and putting it out there for usage. So what we have is available a set of instructions available to us in form of a script which is known as a Docker file. From the Docker file, we use a command called as docker build, which creates a Docker image. This Docker image is then run to create the Docker containers. So the simple example which we are going to take is an example of a Java program called as Hello Globe. So I have created a small program in Java which is known as Hello Globe, and I am going to create a Docker image of this program. Okay. So let's see my program. So here is my program, Hello Globe. The purpose of this program is to simply print Hello Globe. Okay, that's all it does. It prints Hello Globe, nothing else it does. Now, using the Java compiler, I created a class file associated with it. Okay, that's what I have done. Then, what's the next part? The next part is I have to actually create a Docker file. To create a Docker file, if I create a directory in here, I will not be able to. It says permission denied. So if you look at the path, see program files Docker toolbox. Where is this path? Where is this path? See program files Docker toolbox. It's in my system, right? In my own system, this path exists. Yes, right. So I want to create, so I go back to the root and I say uh, create Docker file. So I'm creating a directory. So remember, these are all Linux command. It's a good idea to make yourself familiar, not even familiar. It's a very good idea to make yourself comfortable with Linux commands. Okay. So I have created this directory and then I say cd create df. Okay. At the back end, if I say pwd, present working directory, it tells me that this folder is actually created here. See users write create df. Okay. Pwd is present working directory. See users write, if I go here, see users write. So here were my files, and this is the directory I have created, create df. Okay. Now I basically have to get the hello globe dot class, which is the class file created by compiling the Java program here. I got it here, and I get my Docker file here. I will show you what my Docker file looks like. Now, if I say ls, it will show me these two contents. Okay. I say vim. Vim is an editor available to us with the Linux environment. So these are the standard commands to be used when you are trying to create a Docker file from an already existing and available image. Add hello globe.class, run and update the open JDK8 JRE, as in run the Java JDK engine, and the entry point you have to use is the hello globe. So when you are trying to create a Docker file, there is a set of instructions which you have to follow. From, add, run, entry point. So if somebody is familiar with basic programming, in that we had this set of instructions. Set A 10, set B 10, add B and A. print C. So similarly, here are these keywords: from an existing build, that means from an existing image, add this to the existing image, run a compiler, the entry point is this. This is what the Docker file contains. Now, what is Alpine latest? Alpine latest is one of the images which is available to us, which prints hello world. Okay. So if I use Alpine latest, this is what I am going to get. So if I say Docker run Alpine latest, so we have to use a command echo also in here, because otherwise this doesn't print anything. Let me just fetch the Alpine latest thing. So now, okay. So here we have our Docker file and our hello globe.class, which is required when we would be building our Docker file. So the command which would be using is just fetching that command. So just fetching it, Docker. Okay, Docker build. just getting that command. Just give me a minute. Sorry about this. Okay, missing something. Okay, so the command is this, which would be used to create the Docker image. So I was using name wrong. We have to use tag, not name in here. So the tag for us is globe. This would create the image. So if I say Docker images, I should see my Docker hello globe in here. Okay. Now I have to globe. If I say Docker run Docker hello globe, it prints hello globe. That's all it does. Okay. So what we have done in here is we have used an existing image which was Alpine latest, which was a Linux build. On that we have added our Java class and we have used the JDK engine and we have told the entry point and we have created a Docker file. Then using that Docker file, we created a Docker image called as Docker Hello Globe. And then from that image, I created a container. So Docker ps-a. This was my container which is created. Name is cocky underscore Sanderson. Okay. And this is right now in the execution. I mean, this right now is running. And it has printed hello globe. Is this clear? The creation of Docker file? So we can create our own Docker files, our own Docker images using existing images and add information to it. So again, links which provide information, how do you create a Docker file and how do you, what are the syntaxes, what are the methodologies available is available inside on this link in detail. Okay, if required and that interests you. So with that, we have come to the end of this session. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Also, let me know was this session useful for you, and is there anything you would like to ask me? And meanwhile, you type in your questions, some commands. Docker stop followed by container name will stop that container. Docker rmf followed by the image name will remove that image. Docker image prune all will prune all images. So okay, F is not needed. Only A is needed. Okay. Any questions you guys have in here, you can ask me. Okay. Thank you, Anand. Thank you so much for that. Oh, is it? You refreshed Unix commands. Thanks. I've always enjoyed Linux and Unix much more than Windows. I mean, only till the command level, not at the GUI level. At the GUI level, I don't think so. A normal user has a good computation with respect to Windows. I'm not a fan of Apple though at all. Thank you so much for attending. Okay, guys. So, what I would be sharing is the recording, okay, and and the notes, okay, they would be available for you all. And what else do you need from me? I think this should be enough. And I would be sharing the contents of the Docker file which I have used to create this so that you can also use it, okay? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I know. Even I actually understand this way, Anubharat. So I'd like to go to the basic and then move on. Okay, so thank you so much, guys, for attending. We have another session coming on the 10th of April. Rajat Singhal, who is an experienced performance engineer. So there is another series which I do, that's Expert Talks. So he's going to talk about how performance engineering is different from performance testing, and if it interests you, you can join that. Rest, thanks a lot for giving me your time, and thank you so much for joining this Glimpsing Guruvar series. Take care, guys. Stay safe, and I hope you all keep on learning and keep on sharing. Thank you so much.